put a smile on your face when you're moving from place to place. Good morning, good morning, morning, good morning, morning.
Good morning, Tobago, and welcome this morning to the Tobago Updates Morning Show. It is a beautiful, rainy day in downtown Scarborough, Tobago. We're coming to you live from the third floor, Portmore, Lower Scarborough, Tobago, and we're really happy to be in your company. Viewers, this is the day that the Lord has made, and we will rejoice and be glad in it. I am Rhea Richardson George. Good morning to you, Tobago. Good morning, Trinidad. Those of you viewing us in the Caribbean, and those of you on the live, it is a beautiful morning. It's like I said, it's a little wet and rainy on the outside, so we trust that you walk with your umbrellas. Ensure that your boys and girls still use raincoats? If they do, just remember to pull them out today. Today's a good day to pull out a raincoat, but certainly walk with your umbrellas today. We've got quite an interesting program that is geared to focused on last weekend's Tobago Jazz experience. So we're going to be hearing a little bit later on from the lady herself in charge of that division. So, and we're going to tell you a little bit more about what's coming up on the program. In the news this morning, you know, a lot happening in and around with regards politics. But I'll wait until Julian gets here before we get into that. But we've got news in 90 seconds, or news in 90 seconds coming up this morning with Chanel.
Thank you so much, Rhea. And here is your news in 90 seconds for April the 25th. Former deputy political leader of the PDP, Kiesel Jackson, sent best wishes to the newly formed Tobago People's Party. The TPP is being led in the interim by Chief Secretary Farley Augustine after he and others broke away from the PDP. In a video posted to social media, Jackson cautioned Augustine to remember that even though he was under a new political banner, he still had a mandate to deliver to Tobagonians. She also stated that inexperience in governance is no excuse for mistakes and encouraged him to do better for the people. Additionally, President of the All Tobago Fisherfolk Association, Curtis Douglas, said that he is willing to sit down with the Barbadian authorities to find a solution for the flying fish debacle. Last week, Prime Minister of the Barbados, Mia Mottley, announced that meetings would be arranged between the Fisheries Department of Barbados and Trinidad and Tobago after the All Fisherfolk Association called for the government's intervention into claims that Bajans are overfishing in Tobago waters. While neither the All Tobago Fisherfolk Association nor the Fisheries Division possesses data to support these claims, Douglas said that daily experiences of Tobago fishermen is enough for a case to be presented to the authorities. And finally, Opposition Minister Danish Ramberley claimed that the proclamation of the 2015 procurement legislation was a conman job. He accused it of being a watered-down bill that does not ensure the full transparency and accountability that many sectors in the country are expecting. According to Ramberley, critical areas of procurement were removed from the amendment, such as legal debt financing, accounting, auditing, and medical services. He also added that even with full proclamation, there was a delay in the appointment of a new regulator. And that was your news in 90 seconds. Back to you, Julian and Rhea.
Thank you so much there, Chanel, and Julian is just joining us. Julian, good morning.
Yes, good morning, good morning. Good morning, Rhea. How are you doing this morning?
Doing very well. A little chilly on the outside for Caribbeans, by Caribbean standards.
Well, I should say not complaining at all.
That we know. That we know. We know this is your type of weather.
Yes. So where are we heading on into this morning, Rhea?
All right, so we're going to head on into our birthday celebrations this morning. Birthday celebrations for today. And we kick things off this morning chatting or celebrating
Garfield Lashley. And we're sending a birthday shout out to Garfield Lashley. Very humble, easygoing gentleman. Very hardworking, dedicated and committed. Want to wish you a happy birthday and God's continued blessings.
And we've got Uncle Ray. This is my Uncle Reynold Richardson. I love going out to you this morning. Uncle Ray, happy birthday going out to you from Auntie Liz and the entire family. And Daddy, my daddy, Elton Richardson, says, happy birthday going out to my big brother, Ray, and lots of love going out to you this morning, sending lots of hugs and kisses to you, for God seeing you through to 76 and counting. So love and best wishes from the entire family. And we have got here this lovely lady, Erna Critchlow, celebrating her birthday. Happy birthday going out to you today, and we trust that you have a really great one today, and lots of love from all of us here at Tobago Updates. And Julian, our birthday shout-out segment is sponsored by...
Yes, sponsored by KFC. KFC. All right, and we really, you know, I hear KFC and I think back to the days with people who don't even know what KFC stands for. Very interesting indeed. But our birthday shout-outs are sponsored by KFC.
Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Yes. And this morning, who do we have on the rundown, Ria?
All right, so we're going to start things off this morning. You know, the focus is still on jazz, the Tobago Jazz Experience 2023. And we are going to be chatting this morning with Councillor Tashia Boris. She's going to be on the program this morning, focused on the Tobago Jazz Experience. She's going to give us an update on that.
All right, and this morning we'll also have the opportunity to be chatting with Joseph Jordan, Sergeant of the TTPS, and we're speaking about updates from the TTPS, and we're also going to be continuing the conversation on the issue of community policing. So interesting discussions up ahead this morning.
All right. So, Julian, how have you been?
Quite good, you know. I realized we had a kind of full rainy, you know, as the rains got started last night into this morning. And I swear that's one of those times where you don't want to roll out the bed and let that water hit you so early in the circumstances, because you're just enjoying that. Wow, could this be a weekend? Could this be a...
And you ask yourself, is it worth it?
Yes. But under the circumstances, you know, rain or sun, you basically enjoy a limited amount of seasons here. So we got to be prepared to work in them as well.
That's right. We've got to learn how to be productive even in the midst of the rainy season. And, you know, that's something we falter with. You know, it looks like it's going to rain, so we don't think we'll be able to make it out to work tomorrow.
And I'm also seeing where things have begun to get heated. And I use the term heated, you know, very intentionally between the circumstances of the Prime Minister's response. You saw that he gave an initial response to the matter, and then you see all the reactions. Where he is also calling for elections as Prime Minister, and suggesting that it would be the best pathway, you know, to ensure that there's a good working relation, so to speak. And then you see responses and reactions coming from the, you know, Fadi-led administration, where it is, you've seen individuals, and in fact there's now a video circulating, where at the time the Prime Minister himself, you know, made open statements that he was going to be staying out of Tobago's business, and, you know, the issues with regards to, while he's Prime Minister, there's a THA and so on. Very interesting. And that's the nature of politics. You know, people go searching either side in order to bring back something. And then you saw a reaction that came further from the Chief Secretary telling him to mind his business. So, you know, it's getting heated back and forth. It's getting a bit intense. But what is important that we've got to take note of is specific to Tobago.
Yes.
At the end of the day, let it not be Tobago that is affected in any way, form, or fashion. So it will be very interesting to see where this progresses to.
Now I understand your term. Now I understand. But just mind your business then. Okay.
Yes. Very, very interesting.
Yeah.
In terms of the direction that we're seeing.
We've got to be mindful of our the portfolios and the positions that we hold. There is a population looking on. There is a youth demographic looking on, Julian, and we've got to be mindful.
Yeah, so we look forward to seeing, well, I want to say we look I would want to say we look forward to seeing what the resolution would be, because I expect that we will continue down this gutter for a little bit. Unfortunately, it's the nature of politics apparently, and some have said by the time the statements would have been made by the Prime Minister that here we are heading back right into that kind of campaign mode, where it's going to be a tit for tat heading down the road. But I don't know that we have time for that at this point.
Right.
I honestly do not know that we have time for that at this point, because if we're spending a midterm period, we're approaching 2 years of this administration. The term of office for the Tobago House of Assembly is 4 years. If we are still kind of going back into this mode midterm, ultimately we're getting distracted somewhere along the way. And we got to remember that it's important to focus, because we're also just about midterm in terms of the Keith Rowley-led administration, because general elections, if my information is correct, would have been just around 2020, which means as a 5-year term by 2025. So we're just about, a similar kind of timing within even the Keith Rowley-led administration. So, to both gentlemen, now is really not the time. Now is really not the time. Let's see how we can focus in and zone in. And if the care and concern is genuinely for Tobago, then let's see how Tobago can derive a maximum benefit. And that's a call both for the Chief Secretary, as well as a call clear out there also for the Prime Minister. If this is about moving and advancing Tobago, both as persons who, as Tobagonians, let's see that kind of focus come out of what is this unfortunate public back and forth that has started.
That's right. All right.
All right. So we see we also got a quick on the lineup there this morning. I see Auntie Donette in the mix. Morning and shout outs to you. CC, Ula, Alicia, Richardson, Williams. Morning. Go shout outs to you.
Good morning, Alicia.
Yes. Pearl Murray Beard out there in the mix this morning. I see our youth host is also on. Luke James Trim, Alicia Devines, Lisa James, Kuki Melville. We want to say good morning to each and every one of you. Wayne Clark also on the line. Amuna Roberts Quashi. Yes, Jean Bacchus, good morning to you. Good morning. And I want to thank each and every one of you so much for the continued love and support. At this point, viewers, we head on over to Tobago in Focus.
Tobago is known as the Nature Island, where visitors and residents enjoy clean air, expansive watercourses, and a picture-perfect environment. The island holds the honor of having the oldest protected rainforest in the Western Hemisphere. Mandated to protect Tobago's natural resources, especially in the east and northeast, the Tobago Reforestation and Watershed Rehabilitation Program is a special-purpose, non-profit company established by the Tobago House of Assembly to plan programs and projects to ensure our pristine island maintains its reputation. Falling under the Division of Food Security, Natural Resources, the Environment and Sustainable Development, Secretary Natisha Charles Panton says conservation and preservation of our rainforest and watershed are of utmost importance.
The natural resources of Tobago, we have to protect the forest because it attracts rain, and that is the primary function of the Main Ridge Forest Reserve, which takes up about mostly the entire island, right? So we have to continue conservation efforts towards our own existence for us to get clean air, clean water, filtered water, and to also protect the reef.
In 2023, Tobago's Main Ridge Forest Reserve will achieve 247 years of protected status.
If you walk through the main forest, as a matter of fact, forget walking. If you drive through, you screw down your glass. How do you feel when you go through the reserve? There's a microclimate. You have a totally different atmosphere when you go through the Main Ridge.
Preserving our Main Ridge means preserving the health, wellness, and beauty of Tobago.
Good morning, viewers, and welcome back to the Tobago Updates morning show at 7:10 a.m. As we continue here this morning, we start the conversation. On set with us, Councillor Tashia Grace Boris, Secretary with responsibility for the Division of Tourism, Culture, Antiquities, and Transportation. And yes, we're just at the tail end of the recently concluded Jazz Festival. And we're going to chat a little bit about much more than music. And that was the Tobago Jazz Experience 2023. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Julian.
So as we get the conversation started, we want to start with probably your ratings in the first instance on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the lowest, 10 being the highest. Let's start with what would you give for that overall rating in the first instance, and then we will start to discuss the details.
Right. So in terms of, I'm talking from the customer perspective here.
Yes.
I think I would give the jazz experience a solid 9 out of 10. Yes. In terms of me being behind the scenes and seeing all of this stuff, I know there are a couple of things that could have been done better or differently, because we had a number of challenges behind the scenes. But overall, I think that the customer didn't experience those challenges, and I'm happy for that. So I would give it a solid 9 out of 10.
All right. So as we get the conversation going, the Jazz Experience, Jazz 2023 to be more specific, would have kick-started on Thursday
night,
with the Gospel Night.
Yeah.
We want to start off there. That would have been a new introduction for 2023. Tell us a little bit about that, and how did that eventually turn out?
So when we started having the conversation about jazz and the return of jazz, this conversation actually started in February of last year. And one of the things that I indicated when I came into office is that we wanted to reimagine, retool, evolve the product post-COVID. So we wanted people to see significant changes to what they used to. And one of those changes we looked at was the addition of a gospel night, because we recognized that the gospel genre is not necessarily represented when you look at how the experience has gone for the past few years and the incarnation of the festival before that. So we included this gospel night because we wanted to ensure that all the persons who enjoy good music, they enjoy good jazz music, also had the opportunity to come out and hear their international stars from that particular segment of the music industry, and to be able to enjoy the experience even if they don't attend any one of the other nights that are on the calendar. So we planned this gospel night. It was put on a Thursday because we recognize that Tobago has a large population of Adventists. So we didn't want to put the show on a Friday night, which might have been troublesome for them to actually attend. So we put it on the Thursday night to be able to ensure that they could support, and that persons from Trinidad could kind of make a long weekend as well. So it was strategic in that makeup. And then we had that first incarnation of the gospel night taking place at Shaw Park. And I must say, it really was a Holy Land experience.
Yes, seeing some of the images there on screen, and it's amazing in such short order how people immediately conformed to the dress code of all white, etc., in terms of the response in relation to the Holy Night. Well, off to an excellent start, and I had the opportunity to be there on that night. And what was very interesting to me is seeing the groupings that were comfortable standing and being right in front of the stage, and those who were able to sit to taking the full experience. We then moved on to Friday's activities. Which would have taken place at Buku.
So a new activity again.
Correct. So, tell us a little bit about that one.
So Seafood and Jazz, Buku Boardwalk, Buku Integrated Facility. One of the things that we talk about when we say much more than music is that you're not just coming to the jazz experience to go to the concerts, but you're also taking a trip around the island of sorts. So we started in Scarborough at Shaw Park Cultural Complex, and then we headed down to the west of the island in Buku for that Seafood and Jazz incarnation, which featured mostly local acts, and really that kind of relaxed atmosphere. You're not inside, you're out in the open, it's beachside. Because one of the things we recognize is that when we had to change the venue in terms of what people have known for the Pigeon Point all of these years, is that one of the things people appreciate about the experience is being by the seaside and being in a natural environment. So that the Buku Seafood and Jazz was really to kind of give them that taste again. And you put them in a totally different space, because we also want to make people see that there are different options options in terms of venues to host different types of events in Tobago. So taking it down to Buku gave persons an opportunity to go down to that side of the island and to see what that area gives. And I must say that the response was absolutely overwhelming in terms of the number of persons who came out. The quality of the performances, again, was particularly high. Persons have been messaging me and they said they thoroughly enjoyed themselves for a new event, an event that literally kind of started advertising maybe 10 days ago. The response was really overwhelming.
Tell us as well, one of the things I would have noted being down there on Friday as well is the matter of what appeared to be a lot of visitors to the island.
Yes, certainly.
If for some reason that attempted to attract them, is it probably the natural connection with Buku being postured in terms of one of those villages you go to with Sunday school? What were your thoughts?
I think a couple of things came into play there. We just came out of Easter. So we had the return of the Buku Village Council hosting the annual Tobago goat and crab races. And then the very next weekend, you kind of had the jazz experience taking place. So I think those persons who may not have been able to come to Tobago over the Easter period, because, you know, Easter is usually sold out in Tobago, might have said, okay, if I can't come for Easter, let me come for jazz. So they were able to book their tickets and come and really have a great experience. So I think that also played into it, the nostalgia of those events. Yeah.
And I like the fact that it also catered particularly, you could have come early enough if you wanted to bring along children and so on. As my daughter said to me, I'll be going to that event. Which event? Boy. So her question was, which event can she go to in this whole lineup?
Yes.
But very, very good in terms of being able to cater to that family. Because I saw a lot of families out as well in the mix. We then transitioned to what appeared to be a private event on the jazz calendar. Tell us about that in terms of the Mount Irvin activity hosted.
So Mount Irvin Jazz has been a staple on the jazz calendar for a number of years. And this is a standalone event that is hosted by the Mount Irvin Beach Hotel. I had the pleasure of speaking to the manager on Sunday, and he told me it was another phenomenal success for the hotel. The jazz purists flock to Mount Irvin Jazz because they get that beachside once again, and they get those seminal jazz artists, local acts who really have them jazzing it out on the beach, the sand in their toes, the seaside there, the ambience. So, I mean, that event really kind of attracts a more mature crowd, but it's also good for if you have families as well, because the children could play on the beach, they could still be there, you could watch them. People come with their picnic baskets, their tables, they set up their lineman spots. So it seems to be a sojourn of sorts for some Trinidadians, because there are some of them who swear by Mount Irvin Jazz, and they come every year and they bring their huge groups. And that group usually supports, as a rule, the Sunday international night for jazz. So there's no competition between the private event being hosted by Mount Irvin and Speyside, which we host, because those two groups of people really choose to go to one, and then they may come up to Speyside later, or they go to the Saturday at Mount Irvin and they support the Sunday event. So it really is just more space for more jazz, and we're happy for private entities like Mount Irvin to continue to contribute activities like this to the calendar, which encourages visitors to come and encourages visitors to stay at their hotel, because that activity really ensures that Mount Irvin Bay Hotel ranks high in terms of room occupancy for that particular weekend. All
right, and as you would have mentioned, we transitioned into Speyside for, if my memory serves me well, for the first time, a fee being attached.
Not the first time.
Not the first time, right. But a fee being attached to what persons may have grown accustomed to initially.
As a free event.
As a free event. Yes. But apparently the response still very overwhelming.
Yes,
tell us a little bit about that.
Yes. Now the thing is, people, damned if you do and damned if you don't. When people want to talk about, okay, how much money the THA is spending on this activity or that activity, this event or that event, it always comes down to a money consideration. And there's a group of people who will always jump up and say, oh, we're spending too much money on events, and we should go pave roads and do things with the hospital and do things with the education system. The reality is that how government accounting works is that whatever money is allocated towards tourism is to do tourism-related activities. Whatever money is allocated to health is to do health-related activities. So the money that we're spending on these things is allocated to tourism, to drive events tourism, as part of our tourism trust, yes? So, but what we wanted to do was actually alter the business model quite a bit for the jazz experience this year. So instead of the THA just writing a check for the total cost of all the activities, we said, look, we're going to give some money to cater for upfront expenses. $100. But we have to begin to charge for this product because one, it's a very high quality product. Two, it's a product that is not cheap. I mean, even the prices that we put out for the kind of acts that we were able to put on stage, when you look at world prices and look at what you would pay outside, look at what you would pay in the region, you're paying in US dollars and you're paying, you know, if you travel to St. Lucia Jazz or any one of those other jazz festivals, you pay a lot of money for the quality of acts that they put on stage. So I don't think it was too much to ask persons, hey, you know, this is a good quality product, you're gonna come, you know what the product gives. We're not asking you to buy cotton bag. You know what the product gives, you know what to expect, you know what kind of experience you're going to have. So, you know, help us sort out the bills a little bit and just contribute something to that. And also, despite the fact that we charged, we also had 3 instances where persons could have bought tickets at a discounted price. We had 2 payday specials back to back, one at the end of the month in March and one in the first week of April. So that was $100 off tickets, and persons were able to purchase in Tobago and Trinidad. And the Friday before Jazz, because of all the stress with the licensing officers, we know people were stressed out about all the actions during the week. We said, hey, you know what? Let's see if we can give another discount for persons to purchase tickets. So we were able to give a 25% discount on tickets that day so that persons were able to purchase and come to the jazz experience without having to pay full price. And we felt that those were opportunities that we gave people to really come out and, you know, celebrate with us and enjoy the festival. And I am pleased to see that the turnout was not affected by the fact that we asked people to pay, because, and I could say without fear of contradiction, that the persons who attended Speyside Jazz thoroughly enjoyed themselves.
All right. Viewers, have no fear. We're chatting Jazz 2023. Don't worry, we're going to go on. We're going to hear about International Night, chat a little bit about those deals and a number of the other areas are spoken about in advance as we assess and we do our review of Jazz 2023. But at this point, we just want to remind you, stay tuned, stay connected. We will be right back, and to remind you that this is your opportunity to share the live, share the live, share the live.
Sign up, save, and win every day with Digicel Plus. You could win a tablet or a TV every single day. Just sign up for Digicel Plus and like yourself. Visit digiceltt.com or a Digicel store to sign up now. Promotion ends May 19th and is approved by the NLCB.
Welcome to L'Image Parfait Day Spa, your urban oasis and wellness center. Our services includes massages, treatments, facials, pedicures, weight management, detox programs, and much more. Call us today at 624-1452 or 720-7474. Trinidad locations and Bonacore, Tobago at 273-7772. Let us treat you like the VIP you are.
October will never be better with Tobago Carnival fever. Book your passage and come on over.
Put a smile on your face.
Yes, good morning, viewers. It is 7:23 a.m. and welcome back to the Tobago Updates Morning Show. I am Julian Skeeter. We're coming to you here live from the Port Mall in Scarborough, Tobago. As we continue the conversation this morning with Councillor Tashia Grace Boris, Secretary with responsibility for the Division of Tourism, Culture, Antiquities and Transportation. We just left off at the Speyside and we want to dive straight into the final night. International night that took place on parade grounds. Much contention with regards to the choice of venue, etc. Once again, it would appear, again, from even me being there, that the numbers was certainly impressive. Tell us a little bit about the outcome of that night.
So I take all blame for us not explaining fully the reason for that shift. Now, one of the things that everybody would agree is that Pigeon Point is one of the most beautiful scenic venues on the island of Tobago. However, one of the complaints always coming out of the jazz experience every year is the horrors that people suffer to get into the venue and to get out of the venue after the show. So I felt that the one thing we had to fix was that. In addition to that, when we looked at Pigeon Point this year, now remember we had a lot of weather challenges last year that impacted on the grounds at Pigeon Point, because remember, Pigeon Point is an environmentally sensitive area as well. So when you talk about putting that massive infrastructure that we had at parade grounds down at Pigeon Point, we would have tremendous challenges. We would have had to do a number of earthworks to repack the earth, to claim back some of the land that was taken back by the swamp because of us being closed for 2 years during COVID and that kind of thing, and those kinds of events not being really held on that area of the facility. And because we took all of that into consideration, we felt that the only next place that was able to hold the amounts of people that we wanted to hold was parade grounds. The additional benefit that putting the international night in that space was for us to be able to ease those traffic logistic nightmares that we would normally have for the experience. And I think that it worked beautifully. I mean, even from Speyside the night before, I was shocked to get into Speyside. Within that 45 minutes, there was no traffic on the road, no parking on the sides of the road. And I watched the traffic for the entire evening, and I saw people able to seamlessly come in, seamlessly exit at the end of the show. People were messaging me and said they were back in town in 40 minutes. There was no traffic to get out of Speyside. So that when International Night came, we really wanted to ensure that people had an easy experience to get to the venue and also an easy experience to leave. And in the middle, have a phenomenal experience with the layout, with the cast, with the quality of the performances, with the ambience. Yes, so I think that some people didn't even think that we would have had that overwhelming support from persons. But I always felt that the experience was not just one for Tobago persons to enjoy, but we're really kind of building products that we can get people to come into Tobago to experience and spend their money in Tobago. So that was the focus really of having the jazz experience and ensuring that this year the experience was one to have.
Tell us a little bit, Chief Secretary spoke to the issue in terms of where ticket sales were at generally before the event. Where did that end up? And of course, we know the usual challenge that jazz is not necessarily in its current form designed for surplus figures just yet.
Right.
One of the things that the Chief Secretary also spoke to is that it is not necessarily going to continue with this kind of exact configuration.
Yeah.
What are the plans and projections in terms of going forward? Because as excellent as it came off, it still came in at a cost.
Yes,
to the Tobago House of Assembly. Tell us a little bit about that.
So as the Chief said, we spent about $3 million up front, and that $3 million was to secure the international acts, pay down mobilization on some of the critical and key pieces of the build-out. So you looked at the stage. When you look at the stage and the amount of lights and the configuration of that stage, that's not cheap. You know, so there was some upfront costs that were incurred and that had to be taken care of in advance of the festival. One of the things that we had to look at also was ensuring that whatever the ticket sales look like, that those ticket sales would now help pay down on some of the expenses incurred after the fact. So we were at 60% of printed tickets sold before the experience. Now, what I was told in previous years is that usually ticket sales would pick up in the day or two before the experience starts, and then there's a huge amount of door ticket sales on the day of the event because people feeling all the vibes, they don't want to spend their money just yet, they're not sure what's going to happen. And I think because the gospel night kicked off so beautifully and we had so much overwhelming response that people started to get into the feeling, get into the groove, get into the vibe. So ticket sales certainly picked up that Friday before, and that Saturday, that Sunday, there was a significant amount of sales at the door. I don't have the final figures just yet, but what I would say is that the support across all four events was certainly overwhelming.
All right. I want you to tell us a little bit, just as we run down with the time for Jazz 2023. Some spoke, and we're seeing some people on the live speaking about the other private events that took place as part of the lineup. They may not have been on the calendar, but private entities, for example, they're referring to Anchor Bar and Grill would have been one that took place in terms of a new Pan Jazz.
Right.
Can we see these elements in terms of private entities being integrated once again to take on somewhat of the burden, or rather the promotion or the growth of our island in going forward with jazz?
Well, that's ideal because the THA doesn't want to be the biggest event promoter on the island anymore. What has to happen, though, is that communication has to come to the division and to the Festivals Commission, rather, because if something else is happening somewhere, the thing that we can do is help promote it. So if we know that you are having a private event, but it's open to the public, you're having something at a space, and you want us to promote it, then certainly we can do that. I only found out about what Anchor Bar was doing. Somebody sent me a screenshot of the flyer, and I was happy because I'm like, okay, this is something else in this space. This is something that could take place, so it doesn't matter what the jazz experience turns into next year. Anchor Bar could still go ahead and have their pan and jazz. Mount Irvin will still have their jazz on the beach. Buku could still have their Buku seafood and jazz, because that wasn't done by the Festivals Commission. That was done by the Buku Integrated Facility, which is under the Office of the Chief Secretary. So these things can happen outside of what the experience formally gives. And ideally, I don't want to speak too much about what the evolution of the product would look like, because those discussions, although they have started, they have not been cemented as yet. But we're looking at one of the ideas on the table is a Coachella type event where you have a large open space. You maybe have multiple stages and several acts going on at similar times, so people can choose to be over here with Afrobeats, but be over there with local stuff, and be over here with the international, and really have a huge influx of persons into one event space, and maybe for one day only. That's one idea. We have other ideas in terms of how we would look at the business model of the jazz, whether or not we should retain rights to the jazz experience and then have a private promoter just simply come in and execute and manage the experience, so that they now determine how it looks like. They will do the market research to determine what is not out there as a product and what they can sell as a new product. There are a number of options available to us at this time. So the discussions are going to continue after.
All right, excellent. And as we have you on, in our last 2 minutes, we also want to chat about the direction in terms of the Division of Tourism and focus with the Tobago House of Assembly. And kudos indeed for what by far, in terms of feedback that are being received, persons in attendance, persons who would have had the opportunity to be here, in terms of the execution of jazz, to you, the Chief Secretary, and your entire team, John Arnold, and the team out there being involved. What we want to also look at now, because we know the reality is, you do one good event, you execute well, and before you can even take a deep breath, we want to know what's happening next. So tell us, particularly as we're looking towards, we're now in April, and heading into what everybody's looking towards as our Heritage Festival. As the next event. Tell us a little bit about those upcoming.
So we have come full circle in terms of our events year, because full restrictions were lifted in April of last year. So our first event was Heritage. So now we're back. All events, Heritage, our launch for Tobago Carnival, we had Independence, we had Republic Day, we had Blue Food, we had Tobago Carnival, we had February Carnival, we had Easter, now we have Jazz. We've had a whole entire year of events. And for me, sitting in the chair, it has been a very steep learning curve. I see all the criticisms, I see all the negativity and stuff. And I mean, I just want people to know that I want them to trust the process, because I love proving people wrong. And I think that Tobago Carnival, Tobago Jazz has really proven that, Tobago could rise to the occasion. And that's the most important thing for me. It's fine to give us constructive criticism, because we look at everything. We look at everything. People spoke a lot about the marketing for jazz, and a lot of people may not have been satisfied with what they saw. They may not have been happy with what they saw. But I did indicate, these are young people doing these things. These are young graphic artists, young social media people, and we have to give them the opportunity to learn. We have to give them the opportunity to put themselves out there and present their product. And if they can do better, we would certainly encourage them to do better based on the constructive criticism that comes. But having been in this seat for an entire full year of events, now I have a greater appreciation of what works and what doesn't work. So that, again, for the Heritage Festival this year, you may see some changes. I don't want to put them out in this space too early, but the festival in how it's made up may not be the best the best setup of the product that we can have. We see opportunities for partnerships with stakeholders outside of the division and outside of Festivals Commission. We see opportunity for more stakeholders to get involved and evolve their respective products. So it's not just the same things being recycled year after year after year. So what we want to see is that evolution of the product. What we want to see is more persons coming into the space and celebrating what heritage does and what heritage means for us. And then even while I was sitting in the jazz, my mind was on Carnival, because you don't ever get to take your foot off the gas. It's from one thing to the next. Because people have to understand that all of these events feed into each other. It's an entire ecosystem, it's an entire industry of events that we're trying to push on the island of Tobago to ensure that persons always have a reason to come to Tobago. So when I'm thinking about Tobago Carnival, I'm thinking, okay, it's time for us to make it very clear what the carnival is going to look like this year, what people can look forward to, what are the aspects of the carnival that the THA will no longer be managing and we'll be willing to put out for private promoters to take over and execute, what aspects of the carnival the THA will be managing, what competition is going to look like, if we're going to have any new competitions in the horizon. For persons who want to get involved by the way of having mass bands and stuff, what are some of the incentives we may be able to offer, or what are some of the systems and policies we could put in place to encourage more persons to take part in mass and to bring mass bands, focus being on traditional mass and ensuring that those aspects are not lost in all the mix. The idea that our Tobago Carnival really is to be an international carnival, because we started with inviting our Grenada contingent last year, and now we have to extend invitations to different countries who have expressed interest in sending their persons to now come and showcase their indigenous mass on the streets of Tobago, so that somebody who's looking on at the parade is not just seeing Tobago mass or seeing Trinidad style mass, but they're seeing international mass, and they don't have to look on Google or they don't have to see it on YouTube. They can come in Tobago and see it live and direct. So all of these things are on my mind. Part of that is really ensuring that the marketing, we get that part right. You understand? TTAL was responsible for the marketing of the carnival, which was different to what happened for jazz, where Festivals was responsible for the marketing. And, you know, certainly the different entities have their different styles in how they choose to treat with their product. But certainly what we will want going forward is that further cementing of the collaboration to ensure that we get the marketing right. Yes, so my mind is already on those things, among all the other things that the division has to do and manage on a daily basis from a policy and a strategic direction standpoint. But in my wrap-up, I'll just say that I'm just happy that our visitors came and enjoyed themselves. I'm happy that we had a largely incident-free jazz experience. I'm happy that our Tobagonian persons were proud of the product that we were able to put on. All of our headline acts did an marvelous job in coming and giving their best and putting their best foot forward. Our local acts also, I must commend across all days of the festival. And I think that's demonstration of how much talent exists in Tobago space. And we have to continue to encourage our talent. We have to continue to create avenues, to create stages for them to display their talent, and to ensure that, you know, the next big thing coming out of Tobago, maybe another gospel act, maybe another act, another genre of music, another soca style. But I'm happy to see that, you know, everything went well despite all of the challenges that we had in terms of the planning and execution, and despite the naysayers as well, because we will always have naysayers, but we continue to try our best and we continue to try to exceed people's expectations. All
right, and thank you very much there. We're just out of time, but thank you so much, Councillor Tashia Grace Burris, giving us that perspective in relation to the review for Jazz of 2023. And also speaking to what we can look forward to upcoming, the Heritage Festival and the full lineup right down to Tobago Carnival. Forgive me if I dive straight to Tobago Carnival. It's no secret I'm a lover of the soca music and enjoying those times of year. You see how the smile broadens on my face at this time. My minister at church would probably not be too pleased. I'm working on it, Rev. I'm trying my best. All right? But certainly the comments coming in on the live, persons definitely sending their commendations indeed. In terms of proud of the division, proud of you, commendations with regards to the Jazz of 2023. So by and large, I think there's a high level of satisfaction in the Tobago space and in fact beyond for those who would have had the opportunity to enjoy Jazz 2023. All right, viewers, we want to thank you so much for the continued love and support, and more importantly, we want to thank you for choosing to stay here with us, the Tobago Updates Morning Show. This is our reminder to you to share the live, share the live, share the live.
Miss, be careful.
Honey, I feel I'm going to start to cook, yes, because these children must be hungry now. Right? Okay. Oh, shucks. Oh. These plugs, oh my gosh.
Hey, Richard, hey, come from there, come from there.
What's going on in here?
Oh God, I should have buy exhibition, boy.
What would you do if this happened to you? Dial 990 in case of fire emergencies and always have a serviceable fire extinguisher ready and available at all times.
This is how it's gonna go. They better look up below, 'cause this is your show, and everybody's gonna know. Say it to them once again. They better look up below. This is your show, and everybody's gonna know. That's how it's gonna go. They better look up below, 'cause this is your show.
Tobago Glass Supplies has been a leading name for over 37 years in the glass and aluminum market in Tobago. We provide an extensive range of high-quality, innovative aluminum and glass products for commercial and residential use. Competitive prices with superior and professional services by committed employees who are guided by rigid quality standards. Tobago Glass Supplies specializes in the manufacture and installation of glass and aluminum products that are essential to today's homeowners and the business environment. We are engaged in marketing, sales, and installation of a variety of products. These ranges from windows and doors to necessities such as mirrors for homes and vehicles, designed and manufactured in-house or imported. Put a smile on your face when you're moving from place to place.
Viewers, welcome back this morning to the Tobago Updates morning show. So just a reminder here that it's a little wet and rainy on the outside. So we just want to remind you to walk with your umbrellas, ensure that you keep warm. Do not let those boys and girls get wet today. All right. Now, before we get into our next interview, a very young couple celebrated their anniversary on Sunday, the 23rd of April, 2023. This lovely couple, Henry and Marie Turner, celebrated 50 years of marriage. And they are the proud parents of Whitfield Turner, a very good friend out there in the media world, celebrating their anniversary. Congratulations and lots of love and continued blessings on you. And here's the 50 more. They look really good, because when you start doing a little math when you hear 50 years and then you look at them, they look pretty good. So congratulations going out to you guys. Well, viewers, at this time we are chatting this morning with Officer Joseph Jordan, Sergeant of the TTPS. And this morning, viewers, our focus is on the TTPS's Community Justice Clinic. We're going to talk a little bit more about what's happening in the world of policing in Tobago as well, because there is a new sheriff in town. There is a new sheriff in town with boots on the ground. Good morning and welcome to you, Sergeant Jordan.
Good morning to you. Good morning to your viewing and listening audience. Thanks for having us this morning.
Yeah,
all right, as you're talking about the new sheriff, right, well, so let me introduce to our Tobago Division and Eastern Division, Mr. Collis Hazel. He is now the Assistant Commissioner responsible with the responsibilities for Tobago and Eastern Divisions. So he has taken up that reign from the 13th of April. So he has now returned home, and he is going to lend his expertise as per usual, and we welcome him back to the Tobago division to do his part.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. That was so, I think, necessary, and that was really good of you to take the opportunity to welcome him back in your portfolio this morning. Let's talk a little bit about what's happening here with this Tobago Justice Clinic. Is this the first? Is it the first of its kind? Have there been other clinics in the past, and what is special about this one?
All right. So we have the Community Justice Clinic. No, this is not the first time we are having it. However, what it is about this weekend, let me just mention the date. So on the 29th of April, which is Saturday, we will be having what we call Legal Access 10. It's going to take place at Shaw Park Cultural Complex between the hours of 8 a.m. and 2 p.m.
Right.
Now, what is significant about this? It is happening in the 10 Trinidad and Tobago Police Service divisions at the same time. And at those venues, we will be offering legal advice, free legal advice to members of the public. There is no need for you to register. You just need to be there and make yourself available. We'll be addressing matters as relates to land disputes, matrimonial issues, divorce, maintenance, as I said, mainly civil matters. Now, it is important to touch on the history of this initiative. What would have happened? Some time ago, a body of attorneys approached our commissioner to offer legal advice and free legal advice at that to members of the public. What we would have discovered that some of our murders and violent crimes are associated with sometimes civil matters, so land disputes. Sometimes persons, when they are settling claims, persons become enraged because they are taking matters into their own hands, and this has resulted in a number of murders, violent crimes, and that is also adding to our gang-related issues that contributes to our currently high murder rate. So this is one of the initiatives that we are using to treat with those sort of elements in our society, because we often find, and using Tobago as an example, we often have issues with land disputes. Sometimes persons go to survey, and because they will often ask for police assistance, or they would like the company of the police with them, because persons always have an issue with demarcations and these things. And through this initiative, we will be better able to educate and inform the public as some of the things that they can do in order to prevent and resolve these disputes in a timely manner and without any form of violence in our nation.
Okay, now this is happening not only in Tobago, but throughout Trinidad and Tobago simultaneously.
Simultaneously, yes.
All right, now give us some little background information here. Why did you feel the need for this at this time, for this type of clinic addressing these matters at this time?
All right, so as I said, the need for it, one of the main issues is it impacts our violence and murder rates in Trinidad and Tobago, right? It is also, the need is also out of knowledge and education, because some of us, we just don't know where to source legal advice. And of course, legal advice comes at a cost, because most attorneys, they work for a fee. But what is one of the interesting part of this, and what is one of the driving forces, that it is free. They are offering this legal advice at no cost to you. So what they are going to do, we will be having like a general forum, and thereafter persons may approach the attorneys that are available, and they would put their case to them, and they will be dressed in a private and a confidential manner, because at the end of the day, let us not take it for granted. Although it's an open forum, it's not a situation where you're going to talk about, just come and talk about your personal issue in the open, because we may find ourselves in an instance where they may have two persons have conflicting issue in that same forum, right? So we are advising persons, you can ask general questions. However, thereafter the seminar, you can approach the attorneys and you can take relevant information, and through that means you'll be able to get the necessary advice so that you can be advised and your matters can be resolved in the various civil matters. Because sometimes we take it for granted that civil matters are trivial. However, sometimes these things can result in violent crimes, and we are trying our best to assist and put whatever means are necessary available to keep our country safe, and so that we can make policing easier and we can bring a safer Trinidad and Tobago.
All right, and I want to ask that we pull that flyer back up on the screen. Let's bring that flyer back up, because it's very important for persons to pay attention to the location of this free legal clinic or community justice clinic, and that will be happening at the Shore Park Cultural Complex, the Old Government Farm Road, Shore Park, Scarborough. All right, and remind us of the time again.
All right, so that will take place from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. on Saturday, and bear in mind this is across Trinidad and Tobago in the 10 divisions of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. So even though you are listening to us here in Tobago and you may be in Trinidad, you can visit one of the locations. Just looking at the flyer, there are other places that are available to provide the same or similar service that will be taking place in Tobago. So we are encouraging persons to come out and learn, educate yourself as to how you can treat with your civil and legal matters at no cost.
At no cost. And on the flyer as well, and I want you to mention here some of the issues that would be treated with at this free clinic.
Right, so some of the issues we're looking at: divorce, matrimonial issues, maintenance, land disputes, basically anything along the line of civil and family related, domestic violence as well. Those are some of the things that we'll be dealing with, and those are some of the things that affects persons intimately, sometimes within their home, because not often times that your neighbor may know what's going on, and within the home is a very sacred place, and even within that sacred place, hideous things do happen.
Yeah.
All right, so we encourage persons to come out and seek the advice on any personal or civil issue that you think you may be having.
All right. And as we wrap things up here with you, very quickly here, the numbers to call, say something.
Right.
The numbers to call if we should see something. Who do we call if we
So as we often we have 800 tips, very secure, as well as 555. In Tobago, we have some of our local at our station level. Scarborough, 639-2515 or 639-2512. Shervan, 639-8888. The Crown Point Police Station, 639-0020 or 0040. We have Roxborough at 660-4333 and at Charlottesville, 660-4388. So those are some of the numbers that you can reach out to. And of course, we have 999, which is internationally accepted. So if you see something, say something, and that would help in us resolving and reducing our crime levels in Trinidad and Tobago.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much there, Sergeant Joseph Jordan, for being on the program with us. Always a pleasure having you on the program. Viewers, we're going to wrap things up there. We're going to leave this interview here, but we're going to take a quick break as you share the live, share the live, share the live.
Johnny,
Call fire.
What's the number? Oh, God.
An emergency, good afternoon. You said the building is on fire. Are there any persons trapped? 4 persons. What is the address of the call, ma'am? Number 4, Candy Drive, Pier Road. Can I have your name, please? Miss Bihari. Thank you, Miss Bihari. I'll be dispatching an appliance. Central Control from Fire Control.
Go ahead, Fire Control. Central Control is really over.
Central Control, have a plans and crew. Respond to our residential fire. Same is at number 4, Candy Drive, Pier Road, Chabonas. 4 persons are trapped, 2 adults, 2 children. They weren't able to make contact with fire service, so she called on their behalf.
Transmission received loud and clear. Operator at Central Control 3463. Firefighter Wiley, Central Control.
Create an evacuation plan for you and your family and practice your escape. Always ensure you have more than one way to safely exit your home. Your lives may depend on it.
with a smile on your face.
Good morning, viewers, and welcome back. It is 7:55 a.m. Welcome back to the Tobago Updates morning show, coming to you here live from the Port Mall in Scarborough, Tobago. Yes, we're in that final segment of the Tobago Updates morning show. Ria, it's been an interesting morning.
Quite interesting, quite interesting. I was particularly happy to hear most of what Councillor Tashia Boris had to say as it pertains to jazz. And she did say something, you know, we love to criticize. They should have this and they should have that and they could have done this and they could have done that. But overall, how was the experience? We're not hearing a lot of that coming out.
Yes.
How was the experience? We want to hear from Trinidad Tobago because we had a lot of persons on the island. On Saturday evening, heading east to Speyside, there were a lot of persons at the parade grounds, packed out.
Yes.
But what a person saying, how was it? How was it? Did they do a good job? Was it money well spent? We want to hear.
Yes, indeed. But I think quite a very good execution in terms of the rollout. And, you know, as I always mention, the improvement that I would like to see is really us getting to that pivotal point where we're able to continue to get the excellence, but in the long run, it doesn't cost the THA as much. So I'm really hoping for what would be that private sector buy-in in terms of the delivery of the festival. That would be the ideal, so to speak, if we are able to get to that pivotal point with regards to our jazz for 2024.
All right, so let's use all the time that we've got left, Julian, and thank our viewers so much for joining us. So what's happening on the live here?
Yes, on the live, you know, we have a number of our viewers on, also sending their commendations as well. We see Eric Powder on the live this morning, Sanisha, Ali Sophia Potts, McCool in the mix, Roger Stewart, Dawn Pantin, Lisette Joseph, Ostra Trotman, Terry Trinidad, Cheryl Williams, and a number of persons on the live with us this morning. Let me also take the opportunity to shout out. Yesterday evening, I was walking in my village and so on, and met this young lady who indicated, well, I'm saying young lady because she looks excellent for her age, and then she said to me, "Oh my gosh, Cheryl's son." Right? And I smiled because I'm saying this has to be somebody that, you know, grew up. She said, "I know you as a baby." And in fact, no, I'm so proud. And I'm proud even on behalf of your mom because I watch you each and every morning on the Tobago Updates morning show. So I want to say thank you so much, you know, and these persons just remind us again, as I say to you each and every day, and similarly I want to say again as we wrap this morning, thank you. Thank you, and we continue to be in focus and we continue to be number one because of each and every one of you continuing to support, whether you're tuned in via TV, listening in on the radio, or whether you are day one that connected with us from online.
All right, Julian, and even as we wrap, I see on the live here that Lynette Joseph says, "Do you know that there was an incident at entrance of the International Night? Please investigate." So,
so that's information going out for the secretary and those stakeholders, John Arnold and the team, to certainly look into the circumstances there. So viewers, once again, we want to thank you so much. It's Tuesday, so tomorrow we head on into Youth Wednesday, and we invite you to stay connected for the Tobago Updates morning show.
And I see that Uncle Neil Richardson is also saying, "Good morning, Ria, sending birthday greetings to my brother Ray and happy anniversary to both Ray and Liz." That's coming up tomorrow from Neil and Anne-Marie. Thank you so much, Uncle Neil, and I'm sure he's got the message, so love going out to you as well.
Yes, beautiful indeed. So viewers, we remind you to stay tuned and stay connected. We got Tobago Notes, and then we're heading straight on over to GMT with Chanel.
Running ever since. It's been a long time coming, but I know change comes. Oh, yes it will. It's good
After over 6 decades of existence, the TWCU Credit Union has opened a branch in the sister isle Tobago. It was long in coming, but it has finally reached. This credit union was formed to accommodate and facilitate low-income families who needed a means of saving. Now, TWCU is expanding into Tobago. This milestone is being celebrated for bringing a 27th credit union to the island.
The establishment of this member-owned cooperative institution provided an opportunity for low-income members to save and obtain credit to meet their needs in an era when they were unable to have easy access to banks to meet financial needs.
For some time, due to the increase in membership and growth in status, there have been several requests from members. It is our hope that this new facility will serve as a catalyst to attract new members, particularly youth members. By the same token, it is an opportunity for members to invite relatives and friends to become members of the society. In addition, now is the time for inactive members to revive their membership status, to be fully active.
Today, the fact that we are here within the first quarter of 2023 to open this branch is a very positive sign for the economy of Tobago at large. Tobago in and of itself has had a very long and beautiful and successful story with the credit union movement. Congratulations on this milestone. Congratulations on having this office as a forerunner to celebrating your 73rd year in business. That's quite a lot of years.
The TWCU Credit Union is located on the second floor in the Port Mall in Scarborough.
That was a production of the Department of Information, Office of the Chief Secretary, Tobago House of Assembly.
Yeah. Hey.
Tobago updates. Good morning, Tobago. Wake up with Candace and Denise.
Let's go. It's a brand new morning. Rise up to a brand new dawning as the passion start to rise.
Good morning, and welcome to Good Morning Tobago right here on Tobago Updates. Guys, you know, I had to bring a little sunshine, especially seeing that it's a bit wet and rainy outside this morning. But this morning, you know, when you see me sitting here, we're having those conversations that you want to have to get your morning started, and I'm asking the questions that you want to know. Now, before we kick off our conversations this morning, because there's a lot happening, especially on the political front here on the island of Tobago, we're going to start off with your news in 90 seconds. Now, the former deputy political leader of the PDP, Kiesel Jackson, sent best wishes to the newly formed Tobago People's Party. The TPP is being led by in the interim by Chief Secretary Farley Augustine after he and others broke away from the PDP. In a video posted to social media, Jackson cautioned Augustine to remember that even though he was under a new political banner, he still had a mandate to deliver to Tobagonians. She also stated that inexperience in governance is no excuse for mistakes and encouraged him to do better for the people. Additionally, President of the All Tobago Fisher Folk Association, Curtis Douglas, said he is willing to sit down with the Barbadian authorities to find a solution for the flying fish debacle. Last week, Prime Minister of Barbados, Mia Mottley, announced that meetings would be arranged between the Fisheries Department of Barbados and Trinidad and Tobago after the All Tobago Fisher Folk Association called for government intervention into claims of Bajan overfishing in Tobago waters. While neither the All Tobago Fisher Folk Association nor the Fisheries Division possesses data to support these claims, Douglas said the daily experiences of Tobagonian fishermen is enough for a case to be presented to the authorities. And finally, opposition MP Danish Rambly claimed that the proclamation of the 2015 procurement legislation was a conman job. He accused it of being a watered-down bill that does not ensure the full transparency and accountability that many sectors in this country is expecting. According to Rambly, critical areas of procurement were removed from the amendments, such as legal debt financing, accounting, auditing, and medical services. He also added that even with full proclamation, there was a delay in the appointment of a new regulator. And that was your news in 90 seconds. Guys, this morning we're going to start off the conversation, as I said before, talking a bit about what's happening on the political front here in Tobago. Now, things have continued to evolve, and over the last couple of days, we saw the Prime Minister making an intervention there on his Facebook page where he came out and he would have basically commented on everything that's going on in Tobago and called for the Chief Secretary to call an election in Tobago. And we have a number of opinions out there in this space in regards to this. Some persons feeling like he doesn't have the authority to do so, which we know legally he does not. But he has called on Chief Secretary Farley Augustine to make such a decision. Now, many such calls are being made in Trinidad as well for Dr. Kido Rowley to call a general election as well. So I guess we see two sides of the coin happening there at the central government level. We see the opposition calling for Dr. Rowley to call for a general election. And we see Dr. Rowley calling here in Tobago for the Chief Secretary to make an intervention and call for another THA election in light of the new formation of the Tobago People's Party. And to have this conversation with me this morning, I have the pleasure of speaking with Mr. Ashwood Jack, and he is on with us virtually. And he's the former minority leader of the Tobago House of Assembly. Good morning, Mr. Jack, and how are you?
Good morning, and good morning, Tobago. Good morning, everyone who is viewing us on the World Wide Web, and thank you very much for having me.
Well, it's always a pleasure to have you here on Tobago Updates to join us and have these discussions. Now, there's a lot happening on the political front. I mean, from the sitting last Thursday, a lot came out from that, with Mr. Morris coming out even in the middle of the sitting during his presentation and saying, if your name man, call elections now. And we see that evolving to Mr. Watson, you going live on Facebook on Sunday, calling for the Prime Minister to man up and intervene where the Tobago House of Assembly is concerned, and the Prime Minister, with a prompt response, some may say, or some may say it was just coincidental of the timing within which he would have posted his statement on Facebook. Now, I want to allow you first to give your overall comments on everything that's happening, and then we'll get into a number of the issues.
You know, it is said that the more things change, the more they remain the same. What are you seeing happening, playing out in the political space today is not surprising, and it's not new. Tobago has been the political football of this country for as long as we could remember. The Tobago House of Assembly Act number 40 of 1996 kind of brought a bit of stability. But of course, ever so often, if the political leaders in Trinidad aren't incongruent with the political leaders in Tobago, you will find some of this happening. And that is why it is so important for the issue of constitutional reform to give Tobago its full autonomy is so important. And so when you see some of the things, and I want to caution political leaders who always, every time they're not getting their own way, asks the government in trying to intervene in Tobago's business, and at the same time asks for autonomy. It's an oxymoron. You can't have both of them happening at the same time. It's either you want autonomy, and autonomy is something that the THA have to practice, that when it comes, they're accustomed to it. And so you're hearing some of this stuff, and it's interesting, and I'm quite sure as we go along, we're going to kind of define some of the things that you're hearing.
And it's interesting that you would have mentioned the oxymoron of asking for self-governance as well as asking for an intervention from the central government, because this was something that I would have highlighted recently, you know, in relation to the contradiction with Mr. Watson Duke in him previously asking the central government to stay out of Tobago business and allowing Tobagoans to manage the affairs of Tobago, but then on the other hand coming out to ask the Prime Minister to make an intervention. One of the things that I want to highlight is the fact that the Prime Minister would have said, if you do not call an election, we would not be taking you guys seriously. But can we interpret this as him saying Tobago would be on the back burner? He would not be taking Tobago's affairs seriously unless there is an election being called and there is a legitimate party that is running the THA.
Parties don't run the THA. That's the first thing. Parties don't run the THA. The Tobago House of Assembly Act does not recognize parties. Individuals run the THA based on how the act is set up. 1, 2, and I will get back to that. But let me start by saying I find the Prime Minister, it's interesting the Prime Minister will threaten the Tobago House of Assembly executive and by extension the people of Tobago, saying it's either do what I say or else. That is not how a democracy works. A democracy works where the elected people are allowed to do what the people elect them to do. And the next election, the people judge them. The people are their bosses. They decide if they want to continue to hire them or they want to fire them. It can't be that because you all are not seeing eye to eye on something that you, as the head of the government of Trinidad and Tobago, threaten the island government of Tobago and say, we ain't going to take you seriously. I don't think people understand that there are only 2 executive bodies that run the government of Trinidad and Tobago. The cabinet is one executive body, and the executive council of the Tobago House of Assembly. They are the only 2 executive bodies that run government. Everybody else has a committee in terms of the county council and stuff like that. And then there's a certain amount of leeway that goes with that. I mean, it's an imperfect act. And but the act still gives us a lot of leeway. And as Tobagonians, we have to fight tooth and nail to make sure that no one infringes on that. Because at the same time, you're looking to increase your responsibility to the people of Tobago. The issue of saying that you all came in on one political platform and now you have another is not the business of any one of any political organization in the case of Tobago. People speak about morality, and I think maybe the former Prime Minister, Mr. Pandey, had some stuff right when he said politics have a morality of its own, because we were just pointing out the oxymorons a while ago. I remember the Prime Minister making a statement some time back that I would keep out of Tobago people business.
Right.
I didn't say that. He said that. He said that.
He did
said
in a previous statement on one of those political platforms indicate that he is limited by the law to not intervene on a number of matters regarding the Tobago House of Assembly. But a lot of people might argue this is not necessarily an intervention, but a call for Farley to make the intervention through calling
the intervention part is where the Prime Minister was said, if you want to be taken seriously, this is the Prime Minister of the country. And when he said, if you want to be taken seriously, I will interpret that as a threat. That there are things that we will not do because you have not done what we want you to do. But at the same time, I think as you said earlier, in the Trinidad space, there's a lot of calls for the Prime Minister to call election in Trinidad. But more so, the government would have postponed the local government election that was due. And so if any election is due in Trinidad and Tobago, it's the local government election.
Correct.
But it seems as every time there's a disagreement, somebody try to put Tobago in their place. And Tobagonians, this have nothing to do with your political organization. This has to do with your principle and your fight for freedom in terms of government. We have to stand up and say, listen, we will not allow anyone to dictate the pace of Tobago and Tobago, regardless of your political organization. And then the question is, if the Prime Minister was of a different political organization and the Chief Secretary in Tobago was of the PNM, and the Prime Minister in Trinidad would have said what the Chief Secretary had said to the Chief Secretary, listen, you need to do this. or else you didn't take it seriously. What would have been the position of the organization? What would have been the position? But then again, we have to remember that this is the same Prime Minister who told our Chief Secretary to sit down. So it speaks to how the office of Chief Secretary is viewed. And in Tobago, we have to, because we have to surround the office of Chief Secretary, not necessarily the individual, but the office of Chief Secretary, because that is the highest office in the Tobago space.
Right.
And we have to
And
ask ourselves.
in
Let me
this
just finish
whole
this.
discussion and everything that's happening, especially with the comments that have been made by the Prime Minister, which seems to be another framing of his statements during the campaign period, where he said that Tobago people would feel it in essence if they were to vote for another
If we
political
vote, I
party,
wouldn't forgive her.
right?
If you didn't
But
vote for us, we wouldn't forgive you.
we would not forgive you, right? But tell us, what do you think the role of those two Tobago representatives in the parliament are at this time, especially with the comments being made by the Prime Minister?
You have to understand that the two representatives of Tobago are also either in the cabinet or in the executive. And therefore, you don't expect, I don't think it's a legitimate expectation to have anything else but a doubling down on the Prime Minister's position. You have to understand that what we operate in this country is a constitutional dictatorship, where a Prime Minister is elected or a political leader is in the opinion of the president, the person who commands the majority of seats in the parliament, is appointed prime minister. The prime minister then appoints everyone else and fires everyone else at his discretion, or as some people say, that is women fancy. Once the prime minister is appointed and he takes that out of office, you have a constitutional dictatorship where one person dictates what everything else. And so, could we imagine the Prime Minister having such a strong position on Tobago in terms of what should happen in terms of the THA, and one of his MPs, who he have appointed minister, go against him? That will be the last day. Politicians don't have union. You have nobody to fight for you. The Prime Minister is the total authority on who sits in his cabinet and who serves on his executive. So it would not be prudent to expect anything else but a doubling down. It calls for a certain kind of independence to say, I don't care what I lose, to stand up in a certain position. And I don't expect that. I really don't.
But does this alter the perspective of Tobagoans on the impact or the influence of the representatives that we have in Trinidad? Because we would expect, or at least hope, that one of them would come out and say, okay, regardless of us not agreeing with the current political circumstance, there should never be a reason for Tobagoans financially, economically, or socially to have to really suffer the brunt of the political fracture that's happening between the two islands.
Again, it calls for a certain kind of strength to do things like that. It have to be people who don't think that they have anything to lose or don't mind losing political office. And for so many people, political office, once they get it, that's the greatest thing that ever happened to them. And this is not only in the case of the MPs, that this is a kind of across the board when you look at Caribbean politics. And so to put yourself out on a limb, to give that up, that is something else. You know, I never became a minister. I turned down being a minister on nothing less than 3 or 4 occasions. Because my position was, my boss will fire me. They would have made me a senator and then a minister. Both positions are the women fancy of the prime minister. And so therefore, you better toe the line or you have to resign or have to fire you. And so that is one of the drawbacks that I took a decision. I am not going to do this because I want to be free to have certain kinds of discussion with the Prime Minister or with the government.
Okay, and before you go, tell us, what do you think the role of Tobago civil society is at this moment in regards to everything that has been happening?
In the absence of opposition on both sides, the Tobago civil society have an awesome responsibility. Like any other country, the civil societies in any countries, NGOs and civil societies have a responsibility to do some checks and balances to keep both the Tobago House of Assembly in check and the central government in check. It's not that they should only keep the central government in check, they have to also keep the Tobago House of Assembly in check. And because they're supposed to, quote unquote, represent a great part of civil society, one would expect their voice to have some teeth. But I don't know if that is so. But this is a troubling situation. It is a troubling situation because there are a number of things that still take place in Trinidad as far as the Tobago's development is concerned. Because I think a lot of this, even when you look at what happened with the EMA, and of course you've seen some of the comments, because sometimes you have to be careful how if you have glass house, you can't throw stone. But you see what happened with all the comments you've seen about the EMA. I know that there are a number of licenses, things that like the blasting license for the study park quarry, the mining license, the export license, because earlier this year there have been a denial of an export license to the study park quarry, although we're talking about lack of foreign exchange. And the study park quarry is poised to bring a lot of foreign exchange because of the demand for its product in Central America, especially in Guyana. But yet the quarry doesn't have a license to export because that is not in the purview of the Tobago House of Assembly. So you can well find things like that being held up and stymieing the development of Tobago because of the quarry. But nobody should be surprised at this, You have to understand that the 2 Tobago seats is integral to the forming of government in Trinidad. Look at it for the last 20 or so years. The 2 Tobago seat is integral, and therefore the Prime Minister, as the head of his political organization, is going to position himself and his political organization in what.
Okay, sorry that we lost Mr. Jack a bit there to his connection. But we're going to go ahead and move swiftly on to our next conversation. But we're going to take a quick break and we'll be back really soon.
Hey. Tobago updates. Good morning, Tobago.
Help! Fire service! Hello, fire service! Anybody in here? Fire service! Yeah, we're right here! We gotta get out! We're right here! Okay, take him! Let's go!
Thank you for saving me. You're my hero.
Together, as we face the challenges during the new normal, always remember that fire safety begins with you.
Tobago Tobago Glass Supplies has been a leading name for over 37 years in the glass and aluminum market in Tobago. We provide an extensive range of high-quality, innovative aluminum and glass products for commercial and residential use. Competitive prices with superior and professional services by committed employees who are guided by rigid quality standards. Tobago Glass Supplies specializes in the manufacture and installation of glass and aluminum products that are essential to today's homeowners and the business environment. We are engaged in marketing, sales, and installation of a variety of products. These ranges from windows and doors to necessities such as mirrors for homes and vehicles, designed and manufactured in-house or imported.
Morning and welcome back to Good Morning Tobago right here on Tobago Updates. Guys, we're going to swiftly move into our next conversation, which we continue on that same topic of the call for fresh elections by the Prime Minister. And to continue this discussion with me this morning, I have the pleasure of discussing virtually with Dr. Bishnu Raghunath, who is a political scientist and professor at the University of the West Indies. Good morning, Dr. Raghunath.
Morning, it's a pleasure to be here.
Good morning. We see that you've been very busy, especially regarding this topic, as it has been a prime topic of discussion on both islands. So you have seen everything that has been unfolding, and we see that you have a lot to say on the matter. A lot of persons are saying that the Prime Minister kind of needs to stay in his place, especially under the remit of the law and his inability to even call an election. Many persons say that he should be focusing on what's happening at the central government level, where he's being called to call an election there in Trinidad. And he's not doing that, but yet he's asking the Chief Secretary to call an election in Tobago. And before we get into the discussions, give us your overall thoughts on everything that has been unfolding in regards to the formation of this new political entity, prompting the Prime Minister to call for Farley Augustine, who is the Chief Secretary, to call an election on the island of Tobago.
Okay, so let's start with the formation of a new party. That was, in a way, sometime in coming, especially after most of the members of the Assembly resigned from the PDP last December. So one would only have expected that they would have found a new political vehicle that would take them into the process of contesting elections and so forth. What we saw happen is simply within the last week or so, was simply that we now got to that point where, yes, they have now chosen a name, they're now going to go through the process of registering the party with the EBC and so forth, and then they will then move into the other aspects of simply trying to formalize that party in terms of its constitution, its executive, and so forth. Now, having said all of that, and those are the things that are due to come on stream, the big question, however, begs is simply the timing that the Prime Minister would have had. And within his statement was the suggestion that don't waste time with forming party, call elections now. Well, any astute politician who is worth his salt would know that he's not going to call an election when he is not ready to call an election and to win that election. And for all intents and purposes, the TPP has to be formalized before they would go into an election. So that is just simply a call in the wind. However, two other things comes into play. One, the mere fact that the Prime Minister would have said call an election now would have suggested that he's trying to agitate the people of Tobago, the Tobagonian population, to put pressure on the TPP or the now being formed TPP to call an election, which will give the PNM a better chance because they're going to be fighting a disorganized or not yet fully organized political entity. And
Dr.
so
Dr.
therefore he's
Ragana, with that being said, do you think that the Prime Minister currently understands the level of sway that he has in Tobago? Because I mean, when we look back at the election period that took place, both elections in January and December of 2021, the intervention of the Prime Minister in those elections did not do very much for the PNM party. So him making this type of call, hoping to get an agitation from the Tobago people, how effective do you think that can be?
well, again, there's the core PNM support base in Tobago that will resonate and will take whatever the Prime Minister says and will run with it. And those are the people who he is expecting will now carry his message further into the Tobagonian space. So it is in that context, yes, he is trying to get and build up that momentum. Of course, as you correctly said, personally, I don't think the Prime Minister has that kind of sway within the Tobagonian space as at this point in time. And in fact, I think he's putting himself much more into jeopardy by making this call. What I would have liked to see, however, is the Prime Minister taking Tobago serious and simply saying, well, all right, before you call the next election, and this is where I would have thought that the Assembly, the members of the Executive Council would have taken on the Prime Minister head on and issue another challenge to him. And that was the challenge that where they would say, bring the Tobago autonomy legislation back to the Parliament and give us autonomy. Because for all intents and purposes, what we would have noted in the past, the only time the government comes close to talking and discussing Tobago autonomy is in the run-up to an election.
Right.
So this is the opportunity. The Assembly should now counter the Prime Minister and tell him, well, all right, we're going to talk elections. But before we talk elections, let us talk autonomy. And as soon as you pass the autonomy bill to Tobago, we will then have the election.
Interesting that you said that, because that bill would automatically trigger an election. And I would have asked my previous guest, Mr. Ashworth Jack, who is the former minority leader of the THA here, the role of the two Tobago representatives in all of this, because it seems as though, although the Prime Minister has directed his comments to the Chief Secretary stating that, okay, if you don't call an election, you would not be taken seriously, it can also be interpreted that the affairs of Tobago, the matters regarding Tobago, whether it be social, financial, and economical, would not be the priority of this current administration unless an election is called. So how do you see the role of those two representatives, especially where those comments are concerned in regards to moving forward with Tobago's business?
Well, clearly they have a role to play in fund. They have a role to play in the national executive and in the cabinet. And in that context, if they are going to play their role effectively, they are the ones who are supposed now to agitate on behalf of the Tobagonian population as to where they want to go and what they should be doing in terms of bringing autonomy to Tobago or greater self-government to Tobago, and thereupon push Tobago issues to the fore. Now, as you said, could it mean that the statement that the Prime Minister has made could lead us now into simply a further disrespect and disregard for Tobago affairs? And remember, these two ministers, these two MPs from Tobago already hold ministerial portfolio within the government of Trinidad and Tobago. And in saying that they hold ministerial portfolio, then they have to focus not only on Tobago issues, but they have to focus on Trinidad and Tobago issues. And they could very well be doing the same thing, following the lead of their leader, and in following the lead of the leader, again, disregard issues as relates to Tobago. But of course, there may be a political price to be paid for that. So again, they have to decide how far they want to take it, how far they want to show themselves as being the effective representatives of Tobago, whether it be Tobago East or Tobago West, as well as being supporters of their political leader in Trinidad, who will tell them, well, focus your attention on all the issues related in Trinidad and let us marginalize Tobago. Now, I'm not saying that he said that. I'm merely saying that that could be the interpretation based on his comments. And if that is the interpretation of his comments, that will further alienate the citizens of Tobago, which goes back to our initial point. It could further alienate the residents in Tobago as to that relationship that they would have with Keith Rowley per se, not necessarily with Shamfa Kojo or the other MP, but rather with Keith Rowley per se.
Right, excellent. And then we have the civil society that also plays a crucial role in speaking out on the behalf of Tobagonians. Now, what are your recommendations for them in regards to what conversations should be happening now to ensure that Tobago is not ostracized in the Prime Minister's attempt to sway another election here in Tobago?
Well, clearly, the attention now should be placed on getting the Joint Select Committee's recommendations, which went to the Parliament last year, which was never approved, not last year, year before, and which was never approved, for them now to review where they're going with the Tobago constitutional bills and whether or not we're going to now have greater autonomy for Tobago. So that is one of the things that the civil society should start mobilizing. Let us now start again talking about autonomy for Tobago. And I mean, when you look at the Express this morning, for instance, it carries the headline about Farley saying, mind your damn business. Well, in that context, Tobagonians should start minding their business. And their business is where they should now be pushing for the greater autonomy, greater self-respect, greater respect and equality within the Twin Island state. And when we say all of that, this is where now they have to start putting pressure back on the government and saying, let us now start back seriously talking about autonomy. In reviewing the election campaign, for instance, in 2021 and in the intervening period between the elections, I remember distinctly Mr. Duke saying that what they were getting in the constitutional amendment bills that the GSC was sending forward was not what Tobago had asked for in 2018. And if that is so, well then Tobago should now come back and say, this is what we want. This is what we would like the Joint Select Committee to literally consider again. But again, we bear in mind that the Joint Select Committee, which considered autonomy for Tobago, is dominated by PNM members of Parliament. So that might be a difficult sell for them. But the point about it is this is where you ask where does civil society and where does Tobago fall into place? And this is the role for them at this point in time. They have to do that. They have to, as I think Mr. Jack would have said, they have to surround and protect their governance and their government in Tobago. If they don't do it, then they are opening the doors for the central government to continue to disrespect Tobago and the governance of Tobago in terms of the assembly.
Right, and before you go, as you mentioned, you slightly touched on that disrespect from the central government towards the Tobago House of Assembly. I wanted to comment a bit on those fifth schedule items that are under the remit of the THA. And we had the Prime Minister highlighting one of those areas as being the licensing issue with the licensing officers that were in Tobago last week in large numbers. And the Chief Secretary would have spoken out against it, the fact that they came without any correspondence with the THA, as well as the Secretary for the Division of Infrastructure, Trevor James. They spoke out against those officers being in Tobago without any consultation with the THA. What do you say on this particular matter in regards to the central government understanding their roles and their functions and areas under their remit as opposed to the areas under the THA's remit?
Okay, so Karen, that is a tricky area because licensing, I think, is listed. Not I think, I know for a fact, licensing is listed under the fifth schedule of the THA Act, which gives the THA the ability to determine policy and implementation with regard to licensing in Tobago. Having said that, however, I am not sure that licensing that Tobago and the THA and the infrastructure division have made any policy with regard to Tobago, save and except what is now national policy in Trinidad and Tobago. In other words, the policies that came out of the licensing office as relates to the demerit points and all of those inspections and so on still remains, and I am unaware of any policy being adopted by the THA in terms of licensing. Having said that, herein comes the big challenge. If there's no local subnational policy coming from the division, then the national policy will operate. Now, Chief Secretary went out on a limb to talk about hordes of Trinidadians coming into Tobago, and I think his language was one that is challenging and questionable. And more importantly, that they came out there to terrorize Tobagonians and kept them waiting for half an hour and so on. But that's a normal thing in Trinidad, you know. I don't know if Tobagonians know that. It's a normal thing in Trinidad when licensing officers go out on the road. They don't only come from one division, they come from throughout the country, come to one particular point and keep people there, and people are left there for sometimes more than an hour. So it is not a new thing in Trinidad to hear about that. So are we saying therefore that Tobago now wants to make their own policy, and in making their own policy, they will then determine how licensing officers operate in Tobago? There's a flip side to that. And the flip side to that simply says that has the licensing office in Tobago been operating in accordance with the laws of Trinidad and Tobago? And if it has not been, then there are questions to be answered. So let me just reflect on that a little bit further. When we got the reports coming out from licensing, the head of the licensing department, telling us that there were people in Tobago who were driving who had so many demerit points that they would have been disbanded from having a driver's permit for some time now, but nothing has been happening on it. It means to say that questions are being raised as to the efficacy, as to the efficiency, as to the effectiveness, as to whether or not the people in the licensing people in Tobago are actually doing their jobs. So those are questions now that would now be raised. And as to in raising those questions, does it mean that if we have to maintain law and order, we have to send people from Trinidad to make sure that the laws of Trinidad and Tobago are maintained? So that is the flip side thing. Mind you, I am not here denying that that licensing falls under Schedule 5 of the THA Act and gives the THA the ability to make policy. What I'm saying, however, is making policy, there's also the implementation of the policy. And as far as I'm aware, I repeat that Tobago, the infrastructure division, has not made any policy that differs from licensing policy in Trinidad. So yes, there should have been at least notification to the licensing office in Tobago that we're going to be coming in there, we're going to be doing routine inspections and so forth, which is what happens in Trinidad. But as to whether or not they were doing something wrong, that will be left for the legal minds to determine if they are to challenge it through the courts.
Excellent. Okay, Dr. Raghunath, thank you so much for taking the time out to come on and to discuss with us. I know this conversation has not ended for you. It's going to continue going on because a lot of persons want to hear your thoughts on the matter. And we look forward to having further conversations with you in the future. Again, thank you so much for giving us the time this morning.
It has been my pleasure.
All right, no problem. Guys, we're going to take a quick break and we'll be back with lots more conversation right after this.
Rise up to a brand new dawning as the passion start to rise. The energy fill the sky.
Sign up, save, and win every day with Digicel Plus. You could win a tablet or a TV every single day. Just sign up for Digicel Plus and like yourself. Visit digiceltt.com or a Digicel store to sign up now. Promotion ends May 19th and is approved by the NLCB.
Everybody only worrying. Never ever worry. Don't mind how things looking hard. I tell them never ever worry. If your nice car get damaged bad, I tell them never ever worry. What I'm saying is true. So just consider Tatil is always right here for you. I tell them never ever worry. Don't mind if life make you sad. I tell them never ever worry. If your house get flooded out real bad, I tell them never ever worry. What I'm saying is true. So just consider Tatil is always right here for you. I tell them never ever worry. If sickness catch you off guard, I tell them never ever worry. If times fall on you real hard, I tell them never ever worry. What I'm saying is true. So just consider Tatil will always be here for you.
Never worry about a thing. Tatil, where people are people. You know what I mean.
You can now get whatever you need whenever you need it anywhere in Tobago with Tobago. Your meals, medication, groceries, and shopping all delivered directly to you. No more hassle, no more stress. Get the Tobago app today on Google Play or Apple App Store.
That's TAPPOGO and let us deliver to you.
Check our website at www.tapogo.app or call the experts at 494-TOGO and 484-4746. Tobago. Relax, we will get it to you. Tobago's at your service.
It's a different type of thing down there. And we party till we drop down there. With a lot of pretty girls down there. Down in Tobago.
Yeah. Hey.
Tobago updates. Good morning, Tobago.
Good morning, guys, and welcome back to Good Morning Tobago right here on Tobago Updates. And as we wind down, we are talking about the Champion Tree competition that is coming up here on the island of Tobago by the Department of Natural Resources and Forestry. Guys, and this morning we have here discussing this matter with us, I have Mr. Robert DeMattas, right, who is the forest officer, as well as Mr. Darren Henry, who is the assistant conservator of the forest. So guys, we're talking about the Champion Tree competition, and before we came on, I was asking a bit of a question, because under this remit of a champion tree, we have a number of different types of trees. So we want to be going in to really understand what exactly is the champion tree, right? Well, what are champion trees, or is it that you guys chose specific type of trees, or is it a specific species of trees that you guys are looking at?
Okay, for this competition, we're just looking at 5 particular species.
Okay.
But any tree can be a champion tree.
Okay.
Right? A champion tree, well, they describe it as any tree which approximates or exceeds the measurements at the diameter breast height, or 1.3 meters, which is about 4 feet, and whose crown cover also exceeds the measurement on record.
Oh, okay. So is it that we're trying to set some world records for trees here?
Well, probably we might just have that. Actually, when you talk about champion trees, in other countries, they have them as veteran trees. For example, in the UK, veteran trees date back as far back as the 1600s. And here, most of our older trees will date back as far as the plantation days. So we actually, the gene type, gene pool in some of those species will be different. And those 5 trees, they are very important to Tobago. So we decided to, Robert really was the point person, decided to, along with some other officers, decided to select those trees because of their uses to us here in Tobago.
Okay, so is there a different criteria for each of the trees? Because under the competition, we see that you guys have bay leaf, breadfruit, mahogany, cedar, and
Pronounced sip.
Sip, right? So where can persons get more information in regards to what these trees look like? Because there are young persons who may not know what a sip tree looks like. So are there pictures on your social media pages, or what are the guidelines exactly for the competition, and where can more information be found?
So the 5 trees that was selected based upon usage. For example, bay leaf, we talk about the bay oil, breadfruit that is being promoted presently by the reforestation entity organization in Tobago as a staple, as a food. Mahogany, sip, and cedar are some of the primary trees that the furniture shop or the woodworkers will normally utilize here on the island.
Right. But in regards to persons being able to identify that this is what it is that they have in their yard,
well, we have the assumption that most people would know what those are, and if it's anything, we could always add pictures to our social pages, etc. in the department.
Okay, excellent. Because to be honest, like a person like me, I may have had a sip tree in my yard and not know that that was a sip tree. So I think it's important, especially for the younger persons and persons that are not agriculturally inclined, to have a greater understanding of the different type of trees that you guys are looking for in the competition.
Right. And so that is why we actually came up with this, because we realized most of the young people, as you say, will not be able to recognize these trees. The older folks, because they are around so long, their ancestors would have planted these trees because they are accustomed to sip, mahogany, cedar. And with that now, because the way things are going, we find the young people, they more tend to stay inside. They don't venture out much. So we plan to use these elder folks because we can't just enter on private lands also. So as a form of education to the younger folks, so they will know that this is a sip tree, this is a cedar tree, this is a mahogany tree. We use this for timber, we use this for other uses, maybe oil, as we say, the bay oil. So at the end, we could be able to log all these trees, have a register for these trees, where they are growing, and get genetic material to reproduce these trees. That is one of the main ideas behind this competition.
Right, and a lot of people in Tobago have lands that are not or may not be utilized at the moment. Maybe they have plans for using it in the future, but they have land that's not being used, and they may have some of these trees on that land. Some persons, in an attempt to begin constructing whatever structures they want on those properties, tend to cut down these trees. And as you say, you lose genetic material from these trees that you probably need for your research. What can be done to raise awareness for the importance of maybe tagging and reporting these trees?
Well, the thing is more public awareness and education or outreach programs, and we normally would be on air educating people about the forest. And if people are trees, and some of these trees are listed on the second schedule, and if they are to be felled in an area within 1 hectare and above 30-degree slope, it requires a felling permit. So the champion tree is really to give people or villages bargain rights that they have the biggest tree around on both private persons can enter their tree on their private holding, and also trees that are on state land in villages. We would like the village council to be the forerunner or the representative of those trees that are on state property.
Right, and what kind of prizes are we talking about? What are the prizes?
And so, in each species, first prize will be $3,000. We have a second prize of $2,000 and a third prize of $1,000.
Okay, thank you so much. And so let's say, how are persons going to register exactly? How can someone register for the champion tree competition?
Okay, we have the nomination form here. All right. We have the basically person's name, the address, location of the tree, whether the tree is on private or state land, and the tree species. Right? So they will measure the circumference of the trunk, the height of the tree, and the crown cover, all on this form here.
Right.
And on the reverse of the form, we have the diagrams here showing how to measure the trees. Right?
Okay, excellent. And is this the first time a competition of this nature is taking place under the Department of Natural Resources and Forestry?
Yes, this is the first time, as actually the competition more or less came out of the office of the PM. We knew it as veteran trees, but it came out of the office of the Prime Minister's champion tree, which, you know, we jumped on board. It's a good initiative, and it's helped overall in terms of the conservation, protection, and preservation of trees. And we know we have a lot of old trees on the island, some of them not really in this competition. For example, the sandbog tree at Sandy Hall, that is very old. So the genetic material there could be different for a younger sandbog tree located somewhere else. So, you know, those is really good for us to preserve those trees as much as possible and see if we could develop superior plants from some of them.
Right, and so tell us about the type of study and research that goes into identifying the age as a conservator. Is that an anthropological type of study that is used to identify the age of trees? What area of research do you venture into?
So the truth is, there are some means of identifying age of trees. In Tobago, you could identify trees by plantation record, and basically when the trees were planted. There's a tool that we use called an increment borer that will normally insert it into the trunk of the trees, and when you take it out, it gives you the growth rings, because trees grow only in the growth season, which is the rainy season. So there are rings that you could count and give you approximate how old the trees are. I mean, in other areas abroad, there are other things that they do, but we are not equipped as yet to do those type of work with the lab work and the testing of coals and those things to date material, basically. So we still kind of use some of the more traditional method, which is plantation records, and of course the increment borers.
And the improvement and the inclusion of technology in understanding the age of these trees and other things where forestry is concerned, how does that, or how would that help to improve the area of natural resources and forestry on the island of Tobago?
Well, over the past few years, we have included or integrated technology in our management, the GPS, camera traps, and we were trying to get equipment like the tree radar unit in terms of identifying hazardous trees that might be on the outside appear to be good and the inside hollow. But we have not yet obtained that material. Normally, we'll just use a cutlass, song the back of the tree, and you have an indication that the tree might be hollow, or if there are exudate or emissions coming out of the tree, then you will know that the tree is something is wrong internally. But we have to move towards being more scientific, so we would have put up for a tree radar unit is like an X-ray of the tree, which gives you an internal structure, so you can will indicate to you the health of the tree, basically. So those are we're trying so slowly but surely, we're progressing in that direction. Once the monies are available, then we'll be able to obtain it, train staff, and kind of better manage hazardous trees and generally trees on the island.
Okay, and how does the investment in this area help to boost the overall economy of Tobago?
Well, in some instances, if we have we produce trees in our nurseries, maybe the private sector can get involved in producing some of those trees from the genetic material. You probably might be able to produce trees that grow in faster. For example, there's a species of breadfruit now that they're using, Mafala, and it bears in 3 years' time. So with the technology, we can move, things could bear, you get better resistant plants, disease, etc., and faster bearing trees.
Okay.
Quicker turnover.
Excellent. So guys, just let the people know how they can contact you to become a part of the competition.
Right, so our number at Chauvin, you call Milshiv, Department of Natural Resources and Forestry, 639-2273. Right? We have the nomination forms, and it is easy. They collect the form, they can go, they can do their initial measurements, and then they can get back to us. We will go with them and verify that these are indeed the measurements, and it's as simple as that.
All right, well, guys, you heard it here. If you want to be a part of that champion tree competition, if you have any of these trees that are listed there on the flyer in your yard, in your area, in your village, even on some state lands that may be near to you, you can have that conversation with your village council. If you are part of the village council, be sure to get that done, because not only is it about bragging rights, but it's also about tracking what we have here on the island and using that for research and for other purposes that have been explained by our experts here this morning. So guys, that's all we have for you this morning. Unfortunately, this morning we had a number of great conversations as we started off talking about what's happening on the political frontier on the island of Tobago with the Prime Minister, Dr. Kidwali, asking the Chief Secretary here in Tobago to call an XTHA election. And we had Mr. Ashwood Jack, who is the former minority leader here in the Tobago House of Assembly. He commented on that, as well as Dr. Bishnu Raghunath, who is a professor at the University of the West Indies and a political scientist. And we end off here with this competition about that champion tree competition here in Tobago. So guys, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for making Tobago Updates the #1 broadcasting station here on the island of Tobago. Thank you for liking, sharing, and commenting. Again, I am Chanel Felix, and thank you for joining me here this morning.
Thank you for having us.
I say thanks a favor to wake up and hear me neighbor. 60,000 people strong.